They moved aside as I walked. Even in silence, the others knew. My name preceded me in whispers across every corridor of the Starseeker. I had earned their respect not through fear, but through results. No hunter in our guild had ever returned. As many times as I had, and none had ever returned unscathed. My frame, though tall and light, cast a long shadow. The artificial gravity felt almost indulgent today, too gentle, too forgiving. It didn't match the weight pressing in my mind. Something about this next mission pulled at instincts that had never failed me. I stepped into the mission chamber. The doors whispered shut behind me. At the center hovered the guild master's projection, flickering blue, casting soft tendrils of light across the walls. Gray, it intoned, your next target originates from a system designated Sol. The planet is known as Earth. My breath stilled. Earth, the display shifted, showing a rotating orb swathed in blues, greens, and violent clouds. This world is classified as a level 12 death sphere. 12? I blinked. My inner membranes flicked instinctively. No one is sent to a 12. That classification means one thing: avoid at all costs. There must be an error, I replied, quiet but firm. Even the guild forbids 12 class hunts. There is no error, the master said, its tentacles pulsed with what could only be described as pride. These humans have breached interstellar travel. They are no longer isolated. Their advancement demands attention, and your record makes you the only suitable choice. It changed the display again. Data poured in: gravitational strain, toxic oxygen saturation, temperature shifts that would liquefy bone or freeze brain fluid. Something. Lives there? I asked, voice brittle. They do more than live, the master said. They build, they sing, they wage war. They've survived everything that planet has thrown at them, and more. That is why they interest us. The reward figure floated between us enough to acquire a personal moon. But all I felt was unease. The target, the master continued, is a single maintenance worker aboard one of their orbital stations. An easy specimen, lower risk, alive. We need to study their biology, their resilience. I watched the image flicker into focus. A human. No armor, no fangs, no natural defenses. But the eyes, there was something about the eyes that scratched against instinct. Not soft, not simple. You have 3 cycles, the master said. Your ship is already undergoing gravity modifications. I left without another word. In the corridor, Red joined me, my assistant drone, glowing soft crimson, floating beside me like a silent thought. I've begun compiling all data on humans, Red said. Shall I begin scenario mapping? Not yet, I said. Start with their art, their stories, their dreams. I want to understand how they think, before I even consider how to capture them. Red pulsed in surprise. You usually prioritize anatomical vulnerabilities. I stopped at the viewport and gazed at the stars beyond. Something's different, Red. This species, they didn't just injure their death world. They conquered it. They turned hazard into advantage, chaos into civilization. That's not prey. That's something else. My thoughts fell silent as I pressed a finger to the cold glass. For the first time in my career, I hesitated, because everything I knew about prey didn't apply here. The chamber darkened around me as I returned to my private quarters, screens blinking awake at my command. They formed a ring of human history wars, songs, rituals, sorrow. I sat alone with their stories, their pain, their brilliance. Each image challenged the foundation of everything I'd been trained to believe. Show me their wars, I told Red. The display shifted. Clubs turned to cannons. Cannons gave way to weapons that could scar planets. And yet, always, they rebuilt. Hospitals rose from craters. Hands reached out where hatred once stood. They don't just destroy, I murmured. They restore, rebuild, renew. Unusual for a prey species, Red noted. Unusual for any species, I corrected. A chime broke the silence. Another hunter shell requested entry. I buried the screens beneath camouflage data. Let him think I was preparing. When he entered, the gleam in his scales told me he'd already heard the rumors. Still studying the weaklings? He asked. Still respecting the mission, I said flatly. He chuckled and leaned over one of the fake screens, inspecting an image of a human lifting a mass far beyond our limits. Even their strongest would snap under pressure on a Class 7 world. You'll be fine. You're looking at muscles, I replied. I'm looking at survival. I changed the image. A human mother lifting a vehicle to save her young. Another wading through ice barefoot, refusing to die. They do the impossible, I said. Not because they're built for it, but because they refuse to stop. Shell frowned. Stories don't win hunts. Results do. Others are watching. Stone is already lobbying to replace you. He left with a shake of his head, unable to see what I was beginning to understand. Red dimmed the lights as the tension returned to my body. He's not wrong, Red whispered. The guild is losing patience. You've studied for an entire cycle. I need more, I said. Access the sealed archives. Use my override. Red hovered uncertainly. That violates protocol. Do it, I insisted. The forbidden records blinked to life, then stopped, not paused. Deleted. Gone. I scrolled. Hunt after hunt abandoned. Records missing. Not failures. Erasures. They failed, I said. So completely the guild buried it. Are you certain? Red asked. I pointed to the silence between missions. When they reached beyond Class 10, nothing returned. I turned back to the humans. They were not anomalies. They were the consequence of a planet designed to kill. And yet, they were here laughing, dancing, teaching. They evolve with their trials, I said. They don't break. They adapt. A new alert pulsed. The guild master demanding an update. I ignored it. Instead, I opened a new folder labeled Entertainment, Human Fiction, Hero Myths, Fantasy. They imagine being hunted, I said, watching as digital. Warriors triumphed over superior FOs. They prepare for threats that haven't even arrived. They've been preparing for us, Red murmured. I stood. This isn't a hunt, I said at last. This is a test, and not of them but of us. Red hovered beside me, silent as the weight of that truth settled in, and I made a choice, one that no hunter had made before. I didn't sleep that night. Not that hunters sleep often, we rest with our eyes open, minds processing prey patterns. But this time, there was no prey, only a species that shattered the definition. When morning came by ship rotation, I stood before the mission council and did what no one had dared in generations. I refused this assignment. The words echoed like a fracture-splitting ancient stone. The guild master's projection loomed above me, the blue light dimming to cold intensity. You refuse? It said. No hunter refuses. I will be the first. A hush passed over the chamber. Others leaned from shadowed alcoves, some with curiosity, most with contempt. The guild master's tone hardened. Explain. So I did. They are not prey. They are creators, dreamers. They write poetry in blood and rebuild cities. From ash. They should not be hunted. They should be approached. You are compromised, the master snapped. Enamored by culture. I am clear-eyed, I replied. Clearer than you. Check your erased records. How many have we lost trying to capture species from high-class worlds? And why are those losses buried? You accessed restricted files? I used senior access. And what I found changed everything. From the shadows, Stone emerged young, sharp, ambitious. I'll complete the hunt, he said, without hesitation. We can't let fear cloud our mission. Give it to me. You are not ready. I warned. His face sneered at me. You've gone soft. The master turned away from me. Hunter Stone will take over. And you, Gray, are hereby suspended. Effective immediately. Shell smirked from the corner, shaking his head. You were a legend. Now look at you, afraid of soft-skinned prey. But they did not understand. They hadn't studied the humans. They had only glanced, never truly seen. Red followed me in silence as I left the chamber. What now? It asked. My reputation will survive, I said. But Stone won't. And if he proceeds with this hunt, many others may die with him. I looked out at the stars and made my final decision. Prepare my personal ship. Wipe all travel logs. Red's color shifted in alarm. That's against guild law. You'll be branded a traitor. Then so be it, I said. Better a traitor than a witness to a massacre. I began to pack my gear. Not weapons, not traps, just knowledge. Tools for learning, tools for diplomacy. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to hunt. I was going to intervene. Because Stone wasn't walking into a hunt. He was walking into a lesson the universe was not ready to receive. And if I didn't stop him, that lesson would be written in blood. Earth's child hung in space, massive, spinning, defiant. The human station was a ring of alloy orbiting that ancient fury below, spinning to mimic its harsh gravity. As my ship approached, I masked its signature, folded into tourist traffic, and docked without alarm. The airlock hissed open, and I stepped into their world, every bone in my body strained under the station's weight. My frame, evolved for lighter gravities, protested every movement. Even with bone supports and gravity dampeners, it felt like drowning. Upright, heart rate elevated, Red whispered from my wrist device. Gravity matches Earth standard. I'll manage, I said through clenched breath. The corridors were busy. Humans tall, short, pale, dark moved past with casual grace. What felt like crushing pressure to me was comfort to them. They laughed, carried loads my kind would need machines to move. A child darted past me, trailing giggles. Even it was more physically suited to this environment than I would ever be. Have you located the target? I asked. Maintenance section. D. Begins shift in 20 minutes. I navigated the station, adjusting my disguised drift species, neutral, friendly, unimposing. I had learned the nuances of their posture, their gaze, the gentle rhythm of their steps. Even still, I felt their strength in every detail. These were not creatures adapted to comfort. These were survivors sculpted by hardship. I reached Section D and waited near a display, pretending to study a map. The door opened. There he was, human, male, carrying a toolbox that weighed more than my torso. His uniform bore the name Tom. He was whistling. Excuse me, I said, careful with the tones. I believe I'm lost. He turned. I resisted the instinct to step back, even masked. I could feel his presence, his heat, his density, the coiled power in his limbs. No venom, no fangs, but his biology radiated efficiency. Strength carved not from design, but from defiance. You new to the station? He asked, voice relaxed. Yeah. The tourist sections can get tricky. Where are you headed? The observation deck, I answered, observing every movement, every micro-expression. Oh, that's easy. He smiled. The teeth again, meant for both fruit and flesh, but worn with calmness. Let me draw you a map. As he worked, he asked questions, simple ones, casual. About my home, my species, my travels. I responded carefully, still within my cover, but felt something unexpected. He wasn't interrogating. He was curious. Earnestly, he handed me the tablet with the map. First time away from home, huh? He said. Yeah, first time in space. I couldn't sleep for days. All that quiet gets to you. You find space. Quiet? Tom chuckled. Compared to Earth? Absolutely. Back home, everything tries to kill you. Storms, animals, viruses, the air if you climb too high. But it makes you tough, ready for anything. Then the warning flared. Red's light pulsed on my wrist. Another guild ship detected. Stone's vessel. Ahead of schedule. My skin darkened reflexively. Tom noticed. You okay? Your color changed. A bit. Stress response? He knew. Not consciously perhaps, but he saw things. Observed. Noticed. And suddenly I realized I had no time left. Actually, I said, lowering my voice, there's something I need to tell you. Something important. About why I'm here. He didn't flinch. Didn't draw away. Just studied my expression. You're not really lost, are you? No, I admitted. I'm here to stop someone. Someone coming to hunt you. Tom didn't panic. He picked up his toolbox with one hand, calm, steady, unshaken. Then maybe, he said, we should find a place to talk in private. And in that moment, I knew he was the most dangerous creature on this station, because he was the calmest one in the room. The maintenance tunnels were quieter than the corridors above, narrow, dimly lit, humming with the pulse of infrastructure. Tom walked ahead, toolbox in hand, his posture unhurried, as though a galactic threat weren't pressing closer by the minute. We stopped at a wide pipe. He sat casually, hands resting on his knees. So let's get this straight, he said. You're one of the galaxy's top hunters, and you're warning me, because I'm the target. Yes. He tapped the wrench against his leg. And another one's coming. This stone. More aggressive, less thoughtful. He sees your kind as prey, I said. Tom nodded, eyes scanning the dim surroundings. That's the problem with people who think like predators. They never wonder what happens when prey fights back. He rose and walked to a panel on the wall, began unscrewing its edges. You seem very calm, I said. Oh, I'm not calm, he replied. I'm focused. He tapped into the station's system. Red's glow flared with alarm. Multiple guild ships entering the system, it said. Tourist credentials. False. Like ours. Tom kept working. How many? Standard hunting party is 6, I said. But for a class 12, Stone may have brought more. They'll all suffer under our gravity, Tom noted, pulling cables. Slower, clumsier. I nodded. Yes, even with enhancements, they're at a disadvantage here. Then we have time, he said, closing the panel. Barely. You plan to fight? I asked. Tom chuckled. I plan to prepare. The lights flickered, then died. Emergency lamps kicked on, casting us in pulsing red. Red's voice sharpened. Multiple system failures across non-essential infrastructure. Life support stable. Lockdowns in progress. You did this, I realized. Tom raised a tablet. A map flickered on its surface, blinking lights marking their entry paths. They triggered 6 security checkpoints, he said. That means they're boxed in. Stone will adapt, I warned. Good, Tom said. Let's see how quickly he learns. A fresh alarm cut the air, louder, shriller. Unauthorized weapons detected in tourist sector. The station AI declared. Tom's grin returned. There it is. They brought weapons. Now security has cause. I stared at him, seeing clearly. Now, he hadn't been caught off guard once. Even in this moment, with interstellar hunters on his trail, he was already 3 moves ahead. You planned this. I've had years to think, he said. Never knew what we'd face, but I figured something was coming. He checked his tablet again. Stone's clever. He'll find a way around traps. But I've got more than traps. The tunnel shook. Lights flickered again. Red reported. Explosion detected in Sector C. 5 guild hunters detained. Stone and 3 others escaped. They're heading this direction. Tom didn't flinch. Of course they are. He motioned for me to follow. We're not staying here. This station? It's a labyrinth, and I've been maintaining it for a long time. You're prepared for war, I said. No, Tom corrected. I'm prepared to survive. 1. He opened a concealed hatch, revealing another tunnel deeper, older. We learned that on Earth, never know when a predator will crawl through the dark, and so we descended. Not prey fleeing the hunt, but something older, something far more dangerous, something that learned to survive by becoming the storm itself. Stone was close now. I could feel it, not just in the tremors echoing through the tunnel walls, but in the rising pressure of the moment. His hunting party moved like ghosts with broken wings, powerful, but slow. Gravity punished every step they took. Their suits strained, their breath came harder, and they didn't know they were already inside the trap dot in a control room hidden behind bulkheads and forgotten ducts. Tom worked without pause. Screens lined the walls, each showing angles of the invaders, signals pulsing, cameras tracking. Others were with him now, maintenance workers, 3 more humans, calm as monks, adjusting controls and patching data feeds. No panic, no chatter, just quiet readiness. They're moving just like you said, one said. Right into Sector 8. Tom didn't stop working. They think they're hunting. They don't realize they're being studied. I watched the screens. Stone's voice carried through the monitors, sharp and arrogant. They're playing with us, leading us deeper. It's a trap, one of his hunters said. But we have them now. No more games. Tom glanced at me. They don't understand, he said. They think being cornered makes us weaker. I nodded. But that's when you become the most dangerous. He smiled slightly. That's right. A signal flashed. The hunting party had entered a large chamber. Tom hit a control. The door behind them slammed shut. Steam hissed from the vents, thick and scalding. Visual sensors clouded. Motion tracking overloaded. And then it began. The machines stirred first. Dozens, no, hundreds of small maintenance bots scurried into motion, each generating heat, noise, confusion, chaos born of precision. And within that chaos moved humans. I could barely see them, shadows and steam. But the hunters didn't see them at all. They were blind, sluggish, surrounded. And then the strike. Tom's crew moved like a whisper, turned into fire. No wasted energy. Every step calculated. Every strike exact. Hunters fell, disarmed, restrained. One after another. Only Stone remained, desperate, furious. He drew a plasma weapon. Illegal here. Banned by treaty. Show yourselves, he roared, voice trembling with rage. His suit was failing, gravity pulling him into collapse, and still he raged. If you insist, Tom's voice said, broadcast through the walls. From every angle at once, the steam cleared slowly. Tom stood in the center, not armored, not armed, just holding a wrench. Drop your weapon, he said. It's over. Never. Stone shouted. You're prey. You can't beat me. Tom stepped forward. No, he said. We're not prey. We never were. Stone fired, but the shot missed, because Tom was already moving, muscle sculpted by deathworld pressure met body softened by synthetic supports. In one swift motion, the weapon was gone. In the next, Stone was on the ground pinned, helpless. Tom leaned down. This is over. And it was. Not just the fight, but the myth. The myth that humans could be hunted. The chamber doors opened again. Security forces swarmed in. Calm, efficient, almost bored. As if this was routine. Perhaps it was, because for humans, chaos was just another Tuesday. And Stone had learned too late what kind of species he had provoked. Red's voice was low. In my ear, almost reverent. The guild will not let this go. Their pride has already been bruised. They will come again. I know, Tom replied, calm as ever, wiping his hands on a cloth as if this had all been a routine repair job. But maybe that's exactly what we needed. He stood in the heart of the chamber, the air still heavy with the scent of steam and melted ambition. Stone and his remaining hunters were unconscious, restrained, breathing hard. Their suits cracked, weapons confiscated, arrogance shattered. Tom looked over at me. You said they'd never stop. Maybe now they'll have a reason to think twice. I stared at him and saw no cruelty, no triumph, just certainty. 3 months later, the galaxy changed. We stood before the Galactic Council, an arena so ancient that its stones had outlived stars. Every species was represented. Their eyes, their tendrils, their scales focused entirely on what stood before them. Not me, Tom, one human, unarmed, composed, dressed in the simple black uniform Earth used for its ambassadors. The guildmaster was there too, shackled, shamed, dragged before the council after centuries of lies. Records unearthed, files recovered, evidence of illegal hunts, deleted reports, lives thrown away for pride. The council leader stood, voice echoing, the charges are clear. The hunting guild has violated interstellar law. They have hunted sentient beings. They have lied. They have nearly caused war. The guild master tried to speak. We were protecting ourselves, he said. These death worlders, they are a threat. Look at what one of them did to our finest hunters. Imagine what an army could do. He gestured toward Tom, trembling with rage. You fear us now, don't you? Tom didn't flinch. You're right, he said, his voice reaching every corner of that vast hall. We are dangerous. We had to be. Earth forced us to be. But we don't come here as conquerors. He looked at me, then back at the assembly. We come to build, to learn, to offer strength as a tool, not a weapon. I stepped forward. I lived among them, I said. I studied them, not just their science or their wars, but their songs, their sorrows, their stories. And I tell you now, they are not what the guild told us to fear. I brought up the images, humans and aliens working side by side. Human doctors treating patients from species unknown to them. Children of a dozen planets playing together in orbiting academies. They don't rule with power, I said. They share it. They don't see difference as danger. They see it as beauty. The council chamber stirred. Some leaned forward. Others whispered. But all were listening. Tom let the silence stretch. Then spoke once more. Earth taught us that real strength isn't about domination. It's about choice. And we choose understanding. No threats. No demands. Only an invitation. And in that moment, the galaxy changed, not because of weapons, but because of words. The council leader raised one hand, signaling for silence. The chamber obeyed. Then what do you propose? They asked. How do we move forward from this fracture? Tom didn't pause. He had come prepared, not with demands, but with vision. Humanity's reach is expanding. We've encountered other death world species, others like us. Beings born from pain, from adversity. You hunted us because you feared what we might become. But if you had spoken to us, you would have found partners, not predators. He looked around the vast chamber, letting that truth settle. So I propose this. A new alliance. Not one built on prey and predator. Not one built on fear, but on curiosity. Strength shared. Not measured against the weak, but uplifted among the willing. A murmur passed among the representatives. I could feel it, the tremor of old assumptions cracking. I stepped beside him and added my voice. We've operated too long under the guild's shadow. We were told to fear the strong, to destroy the different. But I've seen something greater in the humans. They are strong, yes, stronger than any of us realized. But that strength is tempered by reflection, by choice. I looked out across the council. I watched them master a planet that should have killed them. And they did not become monsters. They became teachers. Someone called out from the upper gallery, nervous, but earnest. And humans would help lead this? Tom shook his head gently. We'd help, he said. but not lead. We've learned the cost of control. We don't want to dominate. We want to collaborate, understand, grow together. Another voice, sharp and skeptical. And what happens when your kind decides that collaboration isn't enough? What happens when fear returns? Tom didn't retreat from the question. We answer that fear, not with conquest, but with openness. And if someone insists on violence, then yes, we'll survive it. We've done so for millennia, but that is never our first choice, nor our second. He smiled. Our first instinct is always to listen. That smile didn't threaten. It welcomed, and in that moment, something subtle happened. Representatives who had kept their distance inched forward. Those who had spoken with suspicion now leaned with curiosity. Not everyone. Not yet, but some, and in diplomacy, some is all you need to start a storm. Red whispered in my ear. Your reputation has changed. They no longer call you traitor. They call you visionary. I watched Tom engage with the young delegates, alien and human alike, laughing softly, speaking with humility, listening with patience, and I thought, this is what the guild never understood. They thought power came from fear, but true power is what invites others to stand beside you. As the council debated the proposal, as alliances began to shift and fear began to unravel, I stepped back and watched it all unfold, not as a hunter, not as an observer, but as someone learning. Red hovered near my shoulder, its voice softer than usual. You understand them now, don't you? I didn't answer at first. Instead, I thought of that first moment I saw Earth on the holoprojector. A swirling, violent world. A death world, they called it. And yet the truth was far more complicated. I understand enough, I said at last. Red blinked. Enough to hunt them? No, I whispered. Enough to never consider it again. I thought back to the station, to Tom, to that moment when he offered trust instead of retaliation, when he used preparation over panic, when he taught me that strength wasn't just muscle or speed or firepower. It was restraint. It was knowing you could destroy but choosing to build. Tom stood now, surrounded by beings who once feared him. He wasn't posturing. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't pretending to be anything less than what he was, the product of a world that forged strength in every heartbeat. And yet, he had never once used that strength to dominate, only to protect, only to understand. Red projected images of those first interactions, children from other species playing with human children, engineers sharing diagrams, artists exchanging songs. Something old was ending, and something rare was beginning. I turned to Red. Do you remember what I said in the viewport, before we left for Earth? You said something felt different. Red recalled. You said the humans weren't prey. They aren't, I said. And neither are the others like them. All this time, we divided the galaxy into predators and victims. But humans don't fit either mold. Then what are they? Red asked. I thought for a long time before answering. There's something new. Something that refuses to be simple. And that was the point, wasn't it? They had taken the worst their planet could throw at them: storms, disease, predators, pain, and instead of dying, they learned. Instead of hardening into cruelty, they discovered empathy. Instead of fearing difference, they embraced complexity, and they chose not to conquer, but to understand. For the first time, I felt the shape of what we had been missing, not just about them, but about ourselves. They were mirrors, showing us not only who they were, but who we could become. The council moved to vote. Not all agreed, of course. Fear does not vanish in a day, but enough chose progress. Enough saw what I saw, that there was more to gain by walking beside the Deathworlders than by standing against them. As the votes were cast, a new organization was born, not one of hunting, but of understanding. A coalition dedicated to cooperation, to knowledge, to the strengths that each world brought, even the most unforgiving ones. And Earth, that relentless crucible of life, stood not at the front, but among the first. Tom caught my gaze from across the chamber. He smiled, not with victory, but with purpose. A quiet nod passed between us. No words needed. Red hovered close, still glowing. What will you do now? I looked around the hall, at the ancient faces beginning to soften, at the voices once sharpened by suspicion now asking questions with open hands. I will listen, I said. I will learn. Red's tone carried a note of curiosity. And what have you learned, Gray? I turned back to Tom and thought of that wrench in his hand. Not as a weapon but as a symbol, a tool for repair, for construction, for creating something better. I learned that strength doesn't come from the hunt, I said quietly. It comes from adaptation, from choice, from the will to protect even when you have the power to destroy. Red pulsed once, thoughtful. And the humans? What are they, in the end? They are the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known, I said, because they are the most capable of change. And because they survived the impossible, not by becoming monsters, but by refusing to stop being human. We left the chamber, and behind us, a new age began to unfold, not because of a weapon, not because of a conquest, but because of a single decision to understand the Death Worlders. To learn from them. To stand with them, not as hunters, but as allies, and, perhaps, as students, forever changed by those who taught us that the hardest worlds produce not just survivors but visionaries.